All right, let's talk about one of the oldest metaphors for leadership out there, the shepherd and their flock. It's this powerful image of guidance and protection, but as we're about to see, there's a much darker, way more complex reality just sitting right under the surface. So let's dig into this metaphor and see what it really tells us about power, trust, and maybe even a little bit of control.
So we have to start with the image we all know, right? The one that's almost kind of romanticized, the Good Shepherd. This is the leader we all want to believe in, a benevolent protector whose every action is all about care, trust, and just selfless service. It's an image that's really shaped how we think about leadership for centuries, but it's only half the story.
You see this idea pop up in a lot of theological texts. It paints this picture of just selfless, unwavering dedication. The leader isn't just, managing a group of people. No, they feel this deep personal responsibility for every single individual, especially the ones who've wandered off or gotten into trouble.
And the duties of this ideal shepherd? Well, they're pretty much all-encompassing. This is not a 9-to-5 gig. It means knowing everyone by name, constantly making sure they have what they need, and fiercely protecting them from any harm. The whole focus is on the well-being and safety of the flock.
And this right here, this captures the ultimate expression of that ideal. It's such a powerful image of sacrifice, where the leader's entire purpose is to serve and protect, even if it costs them their own life. That's the absolute pinnacle of selfless leadership.
Okay, but now we need to pump the brakes on the poetry for a minute, because beyond all that, shepherding is a profession. It has a very real, very practical purpose, and understanding that purpose, well, it changes everything.
This brings us to the one critical question that just flips the whole perspective on its head. As soon as you ask why the shepherd is doing all of this, that benevolent image we started with, it starts to crack.
And wow, here's where our sources present a really stark counterpoint. The whole dynamic gets reframed. It's not a family, it's ownership. The sheep aren't partners in this deal. They're property. They're a resource to be managed. So you see this huge difference, right? The idyllic promises of care and guidance run parallel to a much more transactional purpose. All that nurturing and protection, it isn't just for the sheep's benefit. It's to ensure the quality and the quantity of the final product. And, this isn't some modern, cynical take. Our sources show that even way back in antiquity, the profession had a pretty well-known dark side. The potential for dishonesty and exploitation, well, it's always been part of this story.
This duality, this protector versus owner thing, it creates this incredibly dangerous potential for exploitation. It's actually a theme that ancient prophets were warning people about, describing what happens when a leader's self-interest just completely takes over. These ancient texts talk about leaders who don't feed the flock. Instead, they feed on the flock. They take the wool, they take the milk, and they take the meat for themselves, consuming the very people they're supposed to be protecting. Our sources really describe this as a fundamental shift in the whole nature of power. You've got spiritual power, which is meant to build people up and serve them, and then that gets abandoned for social power, which is used to manipulate and control for purely selfish reasons. The leader's goal is no longer to serve the flock, but to serve themselves. This quote just lays it all out there, doesn't it? When a leader prioritizes their own gain, the role of protector completely inverts. The shepherd doesn't just fail to protect the flock from predators, the shepherd becomes the predator. And all of this brings us to a final, pretty chilling synthesis of these ideas. It's this place where the sheepfold, the very symbol of safety, becomes the heart of the danger itself. You've probably heard this phrase before. It echoes all these old stories and perfectly describes a situation where your source of safety is also your source of peril. You're completely trapped inside the very thing that is destined to consume you. Okay, so let's walk through this one more time. It all begins with that fundamental promise, the core of the whole relationship. The shepherd stands as a barrier between the flock and all the threats from the outside world. Yet, even in the absolute best-case scenario, the relationship is still about utility. The care that's provided is directly linked to the value that can be extracted from the flock. Think about it. The shepherd sets the boundaries, he provides the food, but he never actually sits down and asks the sheep what they want.
And here it is. We arrive at the ultimate, inescapable reality of the shepherd's role. The final purpose of all the care, all the feeding, all the protection is consumption. The life of the sheep is ultimately forfeit for the benefit of the shepherd. And that's the gut punch, isn't it? The final revelation. The shepherd isn't just protecting the flock from predators, he's protecting his resources for himself. The wolf on the outside and the shepherd on the inside, they're just competitors for the same prize. The main predator was always there, just disguised as their protector.
So this leaves us with a really provocative question about our own lives and our relationship with the systems and leaders that we put our trust in. Are we actually being cared for, or are we being cultivated? That's a question worth thinking about. Thanks for watching.